Treasurer is spruiking the government's choice of Michelle Bullock as the new Reserve Bank Governor. Joining us live in the studio now is leadership, banking and finance expert Margot Faraci. Margot, thank you for your time. Firstly, can I get your reaction to the appointment of Michelle Bullock?
Well, Gabriella, this is the first time in nearly 30 years that we haven't seen an RBA Governor have their term extended, at least for a few years. So that's interesting of itself. We are in the middle of a war on inflation. Inflation should be public enemy number one. It is corrosive to society, and anyone who's feeling the pinch of, increased prices on just mandatory items will know that. And so it's an interesting choice to actually shift the RBA Governor and not extend the term just while we're in the middle of a war on inflation. We can talk a little bit more about that. In terms of our new Governor, Michelle Bullock, the great news is there's continuity there. She has been at the RBA quite a long time. She will have the right expertise. She's very accomplished. And I think, has been part of the conversation and the decisions that the RBA has made to date. So you would expect her to continue that line, and my hope is that she will.
So has Philip Lowe been made a scapegoat here, and are there other things the government could have done?
Well, this has been, his tenure has been abnormally politicised, I'll say that. And the independence of the RBA Governor from politicisation is really critical. Our economy is fragile. Great leadership creates trust, it builds confidence, it reduces panic. Great leadership averts disaster. And, we could be heading for that if we don't take this fragility of the economy seriously. What we've got is an RBA Governor who has raised rates in the face of high inflation. Now, that's what central bank governors are doing all across the world. No one's got a better idea. There's other things the government could do that we could talk about, but he's using the only tool he's got, and that's kind of his job. So if this is what's happened, and we don't know because we don't know what conversations have been had, but if they are removing him because he raised rates during high inflation, that's a little bit like removing a local council during a drought because they've put in water restrictions. It kind of doesn't make sense.
It's interesting you say it's been politicised. How do you see this going forward, especially when the RBA Governor will then be responsible for hosting 8 press conferences in the space of 12 months? Is that going to be a good thing or possibly even a bad thing?
Well, the whole review was really interesting. There were 52 recommendations, I think, that came out of it. Again, was that review political? Who knows? I think it's always good to have a look at what you're doing and how you're doing it. And by all accounts, Michelle Bullock is a great communicator. So, that's a big tick for the RBA. The question is, why does it matter? It's not the RBA's got monetary policy. That's all they can do. They can only fiddle around with rates and a few other things. There's a whole range of things government can do to affect a strong economy. The tool that the RBA is using, which is interest rate rises, is indirect. It takes a long time to run through. So it'll be interesting to see. She comes in on the 3rd of October, which by then maybe all the hard work on interest rates will be done. Who knows? So it'll be interesting to see how she does handle those press conferences. But my hope is that she'll be really strong, really clear. She'll let us know that she is independent. That's really critical, and that she's not worried about being popular, because that's their job, to do what's right, not what's popular.
What is your take on interest rates? There are reports out this morning saying that she could be cutting them in 12 months' time. Is it too soon, or what's your sense?
Well, I mean, Dr. Lowe could have been cutting them in 12 months' time too, just depending on what's happening. There's still a lot of heat in the economy, Gabriella. So there's still, a really strong, happily, there's a strong employment market. There's a really strong property market still. So we haven't seen the full impact of those interest rate rises come through, and generally it does take some time. That's really tricky for a lot of people, I know, because they're already feeling the impact of inflation. And the only really way that, as I said, the RBA's got to get it down is by interest rate rises. So this is very difficult for a lot of people, but that's why, if we do have to go through a few more rises, if we can get that inflation under control, that would be a great thing. The central bank governors they all met, the European Central Bank, Bank of England, the Fed, they all met in June, and they all committed to higher rates for longer in order to get inflation under control.
As a leader, what's Michelle Bullock's biggest challenge here? How can she actually effectively drive change in such complicated, complex circumstances?
Well, leadership is complex. These large-scale leadership roles, there's always conflicting priorities. There's always going to be ethical dilemmas. In the end, you might as well do what you think is right. Your leadership, ultimately, once you've got the right credentials and the right experience, and she certainly has all of those, your leadership's about your judgment. And then how you communicate that judgment. And the really strong narrative for her should be around making inflation public enemy number one, doing whatever it takes to bring it down. And I really hope she can get the support of the government. We see the Treasurer and the PM backing her on that. Because that's the opportunity that they've missed with Dr. Lowe, and certainly in the UK where they're having huge problems with inflation. The PM there has joined with the Bank of England Governor and said, we will do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to bring inflation down, because that's the better outcome for this country.
Margot Faraci, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Great to speak with you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.